Welcome back to Financial Therapy. It's not just about the money. I'm personal financial planner, columnist, and financial therapist Rick Kahler. Research tells us that 90% of all financial decisions are made emotionally, not logically. For nearly 4 decades, I've been helping people make better money decisions. So what makes my financial worldview different from most financial experts? I blend the nuts and bolts of financial advice with the emotions that drive making them. Good money decisions are not just about the money. So let's get started with today's episode. Welcome to another episode. I recently did a masterclass for IFSCA, which is an organization that promotes training in IFS that is located in Canada. It does a wonderful job and was founded by Derek Scott, who recently passed away. And I thought maybe it would be of interest to do a little bit more on how IFS can be used as a wonderful frame for understanding what I have called the internal financial system. And the idea of internal family systems is that similar to family systems therapy, where the therapist is looking at how the family integrates and operates and all the various roles in the family. And in my early recovery days, we would call it the family hero, the family scapegoat, all the titles that exist in most every family. And it's kind of the theory that there's really no black sheep of the family. All the roles, all the affinities, all of the dysfunctions, if you would, of every person in the family contribute to how other family members respond. And so you can come up with quite a dysfunctional system, which is true of any organization, company, business, nonprofit, charitable organization, any group of people. So we need to really understand the relationships and the woundings of those various players to help heal the system. And this philosophy is turned inside. Dick Schwartz was the originator of internal family systems 40 years ago or more, when he saw that you could actually use the same philosophy of family systems theory, looking at yourself internally, and that all of us have various parts of ourselves that interact with other parts of ourselves who were influenced at a very young age. And these parts often do not mature. And as we grow into adulthood, oftentimes there's parts of us that have been wounded that don't grow with us emotionally or mentally. They don't mature. Now that is a really quick overview of IFS, and I didn't do it justice, but it gives you a little taste. So I like to compare this analogy in this way. Like, imagine a company boardroom, but instead of experienced, mature adult executives, it's run by young financial managers, kids, some of which their feet don't even touch the ground in the chair that they're sitting. And they all have various jobs. There may be somebody that's the project manager and the marketing manager and the risk manager. Um, and visualize these as 5-year-old, 8-year-old, 10-year-old kids that have short attention spans, very rigid ways maybe in how things have been done, very who are not super informed but make up their own rules or make up their own ideas of how things should go. And at the head of the table, there's an empty chair. And this is typically where the CEO sits. And in this case, it might be the adult, but it's empty because the CEO, the adult, is locked away in a closet while these kids manage the company. And they're running around and jumping up and down and on and off their smartphones and squabbling with each other and doing everything that kids would do. Now, that might sound a little bit chaotic to you. Yeah. And the crazy thing is, for many of us, this is how our internal financial system operates. And this is the company within. Obviously, it's not being led by an adult. And in IFS, we call this the self energy with a capital S. And it's part of IFS is first learning about all these parts of ourselves and then working with them to step back. I mean, many of them think that they're us, and they're not. They're a part of us. And working with them to begin to recognize this self-energy that is mature, that has qualities of being calm and curious and compassionate, connected, a lot of courage and confidence and clarity and creativity. These would be the energies of self. And we're talking about how can our internal financial system become self-led. And this is so important in helping these parts of ourselves that are oftentimes polarized, those parts that want to save, those parts that want to spend, helping them step back. And the term in IFS is called unblending from the self energy, so that they give that self energy a chance to lead the system with calmness and clarity, creativity, and what's really needed. So, as I've said, these parts are sub-personalities. Each one has a unique role in our financial life. Some are financial protectors that keep us safe from financial pain or financial loss. A lot of them are just wounded small parts of ourselves that carry feelings of shame, fear, scarcity that can come up from all sorts of childhood woundings. And from these, we gather, we make up how life is. We call these money scripts. Beliefs like, I have to save, I can't spend, spending is bad. Money equals love, money equals power. I deserve money, I don't deserve money. And these are money scripts that are specific to parts of us. So there might be one part that says, I don't deserve money, and another part of us that says, I deserve money. This is totally normal. So it's working with this inner financial system that can actually begin to work miracles. And I have seen this. I've seen this in my financial therapy clients, that these warring parts of ourselves can begin to see each other, hear each other's stories, understand the good intention of each part. The spender within us has a good intention, and the saver has a good intention. And until these parts of us see and understand each other, it's really hard to get a collaboration between those parts of us, because so often they really are on the same page when you really get down to it. They really want the same things. They just have very different ways that they're going about getting those things. Recently, I came up with 8 different financial managers that are somewhat normal within a system. Now, there can be a host of internal parts. It's not uncommon to have 50 or 100 different parts of ourselves in charge of different things or doing different roles in the system. So there's not necessarily a limit on these, but I'll just highlight some that seem to be normal. And I'll relate them to functions of a corporation or a company. So, for example, the first pair of financial managers could be a project manager. And project managers will focus on budgets and structure, organization, getting things done, being really on top of everything, concerned about spending, and wanting to be really efficient. Sometimes in the system, this could be a saving part. Another one that kind of sits across the table from this one is, I'll call it the HR manager, human relations manager. Human relations really prioritizes the individual, prioritizes stress reduction and supporting the humanity of a company, and would be concerned about self-care, concerned about taking care of the company, taking care of the workforce. So this is the part of us that may want to spend for a massage, may want to spend for a vacation or a good book or whatever, a self-care, for a physical, a checkup, things of this type. When the project manager may be saying there's no money for that, or that's wasteful, or we really need to minimize that and concentrate on the budget. So it's pretty important that these two parts of us get to know one another, get to know what the hope is, what the project manager's hope is in doing its job, what the HR manager's hope is in its job, and what the fear is for both of these parts if they don't do their job. The project manager may fear if we don't adhere to a budget, we could go bankrupt. And the HR manager can fear if we don't take care of ourselves and our people, we're not going to be profitable, and we could go bankrupt just as easily. Another couple of polarized or offsetting parts would, for example, be the entrepreneur, the founder. of the company. This is the risk taker of the company. This is the part of us that wants to take risks, maybe wants to start a business or wants to go to college when nobody in our family has ever gone to college, or make an investment into something. Could be a number of things. And then across the table from this manager, we have the risk manager. And she advocates for rules, for safety, for avoiding losses, wants certainty, and can fear. Big risks can turn into big losses. So these two parts of our internal financial system can often be at odds with each other, and sometimes, in a not so pleasant way. They can really not like each other. And so it's working with these parts of ourselves to help them have their say, help them be seen, and be seen both by you, which is the self, and be seen by the other part. Another example is the financial controller, who could be obsessed with cutting costs and ensuring stability within the system, and the marketing and sales part of you that's impulsive, advocates for quick decisions, sees something and wants to spend the money right now for that, while the controller is going crazy, going, wait a minute, no, stop. We've got to consider this. We've got to run this through the protocol. Another pair would be the operations manager. That's very practical, solves problems with practical solutions. And then another part that wants to be very, maybe risk-taking, maybe less practical, maybe more adventurous. So the examples could be limited, unlimited as to the polarizations, the number of internal roles that are sitting in opposition. So we can all relate to this. So money scripts then are formed. For example, a risk manager might develop, if you grew up hearing, we can't afford that. We can't do that. And maybe in not doing that, there was a part of us that was really wounded because we really wanted that. While maybe an HR manager might emerge from witnessing the stress of financial hardship and vowing, I will take care of myself no matter what, regardless of the cost, regardless of the consequences. So both managers can mean well, but without the leading of self, without the self energy, they can go off on an extreme path that doesn't serve us well as we mature. So that's a little bit about these managers and how these polarizations can come up within. So what's really important is this idea of unblending. It's probably the most important concept in internal financial systems. And it's the process of separating ourselves from our parts so we can observe them rather than being overwhelmed by them. So we can talk for a part rather than from a part. It's realizing that we are not our money scripts. Money scripts are a part of us. So if you can imagine unlocking that closet and letting the adult CEO out, the self out, and the the managers, the parts can realize that they're an important part of the company. Their voices are important, but they're not leading the company. Maybe in the analogy I gave you at first, you could imagine all these kids taking turns sitting in the CEO seat. And it just doesn't go well, you know. One kid's there, the other kid decides he wants to lead the company, pushes that kid out. That kid's crying and mayhem ensues. And one by one, they all struggle for control of the company, and some cower under the table and don't even want to come out. So it's this unblending is the discovery of this calmness, this curiosity, this compassion that is in every one of us. And as parts of us step back, realizing their parts, it can begin to unleash the adult within. So some of the ways that we can unblend from these parts is when we're talking, just ask yourself, who's speaking right now? What part of me is talking about we've got to spend for this or we've got to save for this? What part of me is being critical right now? Shaming the part that wants to spend? What part of me is worrying right now, really anxious? So it's a noticing of these parts and a separation that, again, this is a part of me. It's also beginning to ask curious questions, getting curious. You know, what is this a part afraid of? I've often said that IFS therapy, in my opinion, it's not necessarily taught this way, but is interviewing yourself, interviewing parts of yourself, or working with an IFS therapist or practitioner that helps you interview parts of yourself. And there's always questions that can be asked of these parts, like, what are you afraid of? What are you afraid of if you didn't believe this money script? What do you hope that this money script will produce within yourself? What does this part need? What are the needs of this part? And ultimately, it's beginning to form a relationship between you and the parts rather than a part-to-part relationship, which is what's been happening. It's a part-to-self relationship. As these parts begin to have a relationship from you and begin to be able to tell you their stories and how they developed and how they came about and what their hopes and fears are. And then in doing that, you can begin to help parts see one another, and you can start getting input from the parts that want to spend, input from the parts that want to save, and you can help lead the system in a balanced, calm, compassionate way. So, so in the system, every manager has a role, but no manager dominates the system. The system is run by the self energy. So the self can ensure that the project manager's need for structure doesn't silence the marketing part's creativity, or that the risk manager's caution doesn't paralyze the entrepreneur. Everybody, every part has a place. So when yourself steps in as the CEO, the boardroom transforms from chaos to harmony. The project manager, the marketing manager, risk manager, HR managers all have their say. But the self energy ensures that they work together like a director directing an orchestra that can make something financially beautiful happening within the individual. So as you go into this next week or two, notice which financial manager is the loudest in your decisions. When a manager takes up and kind of pushes you out of the CEO's seat, recognize that and invite that manager to step back, to step out of that seat and tell you what's going on. What is it afraid of? What is it trying to accomplish? And in doing so, you can bring more self-energy to your financial system. So next time, I want to explore a little bit more about what a self-led system looks like. And I want to talk about these qualities. IFS calls it the 8 C's and the 5 P's. And we'll do a little self-assessment of your internal financial system. And we'll see to what degree that you are self-led and to what degree managers may be leading in your boardroom. So thanks again for joining me. You can reach out to me at rick@rickkahler.com. We have the advanced-wellbeing.com website that we have information on about financial therapy and IFS, informed financial therapy. Thanks for joining me, Rick Kahler, for another episode of Financial Therapy. It's not just about the money. This is where I combine the nuts and bolts of financial advice with the emotions that drive making them. Remember, every financial behavior, whether it appears illogical to you or others, makes perfect sense when we understand the underlying beliefs, feelings, and thoughts. Sign up for my weekly blog at financialawakenings.com. I hope you'll join me again for our next episode.